Ago. Amen. Welcome to Africa Lenezi, the beating of the majestic African drum in the Americas and the Caribbean. The resounding sound of the beating African drum sailed across the wide Atlantic Ocean to the Americas and the Caribbean thousands of years before the Western world suddenly arose from their wars. There is a misconception Christopher Columbus was the first to discover the Americas, but Papa Africa begged to differ. Trade with Africa had existed with the Americas thousands of years prior to the European invasion and the importation of slave labor from the African continent. Let's face it, Papa Africa said. The once renowned Emperor Mansa II of Mali, also known as Aboubakr II, abdicated the throne in around 1311 on an expedition to explore new territories across the ocean, and he left the African continent with a large army of soldiers, wives, bodyguards, astrologers, scholars, agriculturalists, farmers, livestock, etc., traveling with a fleet of ships comparable to Noah's Ark as depicted in the Bible. Emperor Aboubakr II abdicated the throne to his renowned son, Emperor Mansa Kanka Musa I, who reigned from around 1312 to 1337. Funnily enough, it is said Christopher Columbus first arrived in the Americas in 1492. By accident. He was trying to get to Asia for spices and ended up in the Americas. Mother Africa intervened. Kwe! Christopher Columbus, you got lost at sea. Wow, your teacher must have really struggled. He must have been intelligent, she said. Or he failed to listen to his African crewmen who were experts seamen. Would you believe Christopher Columbus's journey to the Americas? He passed through the Elmina Castle in Ghana today to collect more slaves. When he landed in the Americas, there were people already living there, including descendants of Africans or Malians who sailed with Emperor Aboubakr II centuries ago. Emperor Aboubakr II never returned to Africa from the Americas. The majestic, magnificent, powerful, and authoritative sound of the beating African drum was banned, barred, or deemed illegal by ridiculous laws enacted in the Americas and the Caribbean. In Jamaica, for instance, Africans held in bondage or servitude were forbidden to play drums. Similarly, the same prohibition was meted out to Africans held in bondage in Trinidad and the rest of the islands in the Caribbean. Africans held in bondage were condescendingly regarded as property, where plantation owners were threatened with fines if any of their property, i.e. slaves, were caught playing drums. The cheek of it. Social gathering of Africans were also forbidden. A curfew of 10 p.m. was imposed on them at that time. Just picture this. Imagine the current government enacts a law to prohibit the use of the mobile phone and the internet today. And parents or guardians will be penalized or punished or prosecuted if their children are caught using the mobile phones. How ridiculous would that be? If you hold a race of people hostage for hundreds of years, it is only right for the hostages to rebel and fight off years of abuse and injustice as we've been witnessing today, isn't it? We still see similar traits today inflicted on Africans in the diaspora when they organize parties at their homes or receive visitors at their homes for social gathering. An envious neighbor would call Bobby to come and break up the party. It's past 10 o'clock, Bobby says. We had a call from the neighbors. What have you got to be so happy about? He bleats. Wow, what a comment. Dreadful, huh? Look around. Unfair laws in the past have been enacted to suppress the African. Africans in the diaspora still cannot freely beat the African drum unless permission is sought from an authority such as the council or the police. Law in the Americas and the Caribbean once prohibited the beating of the African drum. The European slave merchants quickly recognized the African drum's spiritual significance, its magnificence, its power, and the roaring or gentle sound the drum makes when its membrane is caressed, tapped, slapped, and beaten in a specific manner. The miscreants or slave merchants in the Caribbean and the Americas, having recognized the power of the African drum, decided to crush the African spirit by enacting a law to ban its use because they became cognizant of the fact that the African drum was also an instrument for sending and receiving coded messages. As of the year 1688, starting with Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean, a law was promulgated banning the beating of the African drum. This gave thugs extra powers to invade, raid, or barge into slave quarters or African homes whenever they wanted to search their house or their houses for the African drum and its instruments. It also gave them the license to appropriate African artifacts. During the slave master's raid, when drums were found, they were confiscated and burned in their presence. Just imagine your iPhone, iPad, laptop, computer, you name it, with something precious to you, is confiscated and burned right in your presence under the guise of a ridiculous law? Papa Africa requested. Unfathomable. Huh? Don't be fooled, Papa Africa says. The notion of stop and search or barge into African homes is nothing new. It was legitimized as far back as 1688. But the Africans in the diaspora, amidst all the restrictions over the centuries, invented different ways of communicating encoded and decoded messages through music. The melodious reggae sound from Jamaica is a testament to this. Lest I forget, Papa Africa said, would you believe the name Jamaica was derived from the Fanti or Asante or Akan language Jamaica, which is the Fanti version, Jamaica, which is the Asante, which translates to perhaps we are stuck forever. It's how Jamaica was coined. Jamaica, Jamaica, Jamaica. That's how Jamaica was formed. While the law once prohibited the beating of the African drum in the Americas and the Caribbean islands, African Americans have contributed greatly in producing great melodious sounds we all enjoy today. You would have noticed the sound of the beating African drum is steadily finding its voice again. 155 years ago this month, that's 19th June 1865, was the official liberation of slavery in America. The beating of the African drum, with all its prohibition, has continued to silently vibrate. The sound from the African drum shall continue to vibrate until Africa and its people are treated with dignity around the world. On Friday, 19th of June 2020, the Bank of England and the Church of England apologized for reaping profits from its complicit involvement in the slave trade. Embrace your culture, Papa Africa says, and be proud of your heritage. When you hear the sound of the beating African drum, always remember that distinctive sound originates from nowhere else but Africa, and it is the genesis that laid the foundation for the invention of today's telecommunication industry. Let's listen to a small snippet of Africans in the diaspora from Cuba invoking the culture of the talking drum, considering their ancestors and themselves had been prohibited from playing or beating the African drum for centuries, proving that an African is always an African, regardless which part of the world you were born. I shall also play you a snippet from the Adjoa Yeboah Ajay ensemble and see if you can identify slight similarities, especially in the playing of the big talking drum, the fon tom from. See if you can work it out. And while you watch that one from the Asantes, see if you can also identify the treble drum from the bass or the bass drum. See if you can also recognize the talking drum, also referred to as dum dum. Enjoy.